let's talk about the time where I turned down a 5-figure sponsorship deal. Might sound ridiculous to you. Sometimes I think back at it and just think, what, why? But you know what? I had my reasons, and I feel like whilst I teach you how to get these deals, I don't actually teach you when to turn them down. So that's what today's video is going to be. Let's get to it. Hi everyone, my name is Jade for those of you who are new, and if you're not new, then hi, welcome back. Let's talk about the time where I turned down a really big sponsorship deal. Now, I first want to start off by saying that I feel incredibly grateful to even have these kind of opportunities, do not get me wrong. And if you're someone who wants to work with brands, then I've got loads of content which is going to help you. I also have loads of services where I can provide more in-depth help. I'll put links in the description. I'll put a link to one of my videos that will help you up here. But I'm just here to say that the content that will help you get to the 5-figure sponsorship deal stage, it exists. I have it on my channel. I'm here to help. So let me tell you the story about how this deal came about and why I turned it down. Unfortunately, I won't be able to tell you the name of the brand. Whilst I didn't quite sign an NDA, which is like a non-disclosure agreement for anyone who doesn't know, which a lot of brands ask you to sign, I didn't get to the stage where I'd signed an NDA, but I did verbally agree not to disclose the fact that I was negotiating with this brand during the negotiation. So I think it's only fair that I continue that post negotiations, and I don't disclose the name of the brand now either. So hopefully that doesn't bother anyone too much. So the brand is fairly well known. I use their products/services a lot already, and they've actually reached out to me on multiple occasions. This wasn't the first time that they reached out looking to partner with me or sponsor a video. This was probably the third time that they'd reached out to me. Now, the reasons why the 2 previous deals had fallen through were different. So the first deal that they offered me, it fell through because the timings weren't right. So they wanted some content literally within a week of them emailing me. And for those of you who don't know how the process usually works when you work with a brand, they'll reach out to you, you might have a call with them, there'll be a lot of back and forth over email, you'll agree on your contract and the terms and the price, and then you obviously need to produce the video, and then the video needs to be approved. That whole process usually takes like 3 weeks at least, right? So with some brands it could take months. So for them to say like, hey, do you want to work with us? Can we speed this whole process up and get something out approved within a week? Just wouldn't work for me. I also have a content schedule. I had other brands who I was working with at the time, and it just wasn't going to fit into my plans. So that's why it fell through the first time. The second time it fell through because they came to me with basically the same budget as they did the first time they reached out to me, but I had grown about 30,000 followers in that time. So my rate was higher because my audience was bigger, which means that a promotion of their product or service on my content would probably result in more sales and kind of conversions and money for them, right? So my rate was higher, and when I kind of came back to say that, they were like, oh, well, we don't have the budget, so maybe next time. And I was like, cool, fair enough. So that brings us to the most recent time where they reached out to me over email again, and they had a huge budget, right? Like really big 5-figure budget, right? So I was like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Like, I already like the product/service. I already use it. Like, we've spoken back and forth, and like they've seemed pretty chill in the past. Like, this could be a really interesting deal. Now, there were some red flags what came up in my mind, and to be honest, it was the budget that was the red flag, because for my channel size and my niche, 5 figures is rare. You normally get a 5-figure deal if you are doing a longer term partnership, right? That's when you get them, because for someone of my following and my size to get a 5-figure deal, there needs to be a lot of content involved, and it probably needs to be like shared over a long period of time, right? So when I saw the budget, I was a bit like, oh, I feel like this is going to be a really long-term deal, and I have other things in the works. I don't like doing too much sponsored content, so I just wasn't sure if it was going to fit into my schedule. So anyway, we have a call with them, myself and Jamie, and lo and behold, my hunch was correct, right? They wanted a lot of content for the money that they were paying, which I very much thought was going to happen. Right, we're talking like, I can't remember what the final amount was because we went back and forth, but I feel like the initial conversation was like 8 YouTube videos and like a TikTok a week and a reel a week and like feed posts and then stories. And I'm not saying by any means that I wouldn't agree to something like that, because I have agreed to stuff like that in the past. I love doing long-term brand partnerships. They're my favorite, they're the most effective, and I love having that kind of relationship with a brand where you work with them for a long time. However, even for their budget, what they wanted wasn't quite right, which was wild to me. But even for their budget, I was like, whoa. But not only that, they wanted all of that content and they wanted it to go live within the space of about 6 weeks, which means that pretty much all of my content for 6 weeks would just be part of this brand partnership. Now, this causes so many issues for me as a creator and would cause you so many issues as well. The first being that is way too short of time to release so much content about one specific brand, but also it would mean that I wouldn't really have a chance to talk about anything else during that time or work with any other brands during that time. And that leads me on to the real kind of nail in the coffin when it came to this deal. And what that was the fact that they wanted complete exclusivity across all of my channels for 3 months. Now, what that meant when I say complete exclusivity, they didn't want me to work with any brand, not just a brand within their category, any brand for 3 months. No. Any creators out there who are thinking about signing a deal like that, I would very strongly advise you to exercise caution. I mean, every case is different. Maybe there's an offer that is just so incredible that you're willing to agree to something like that. That could very much happen. But for the most part, you don't want to be signing any deals which state that you cannot work with any other brands for a set period of time. It's different if they're just saying you can't work with their competitors, like that's normal. But to say you can't work with any other brand for 3 months was wild. I already had sponsorship deals in place, so it obviously wasn't going to work. But even if I didn't, I wouldn't agree to that. Because what if a really great opportunity came along? I just would never agree to something like that. But also, they didn't say this up front. They just put it in what they call their heads of terms, which is essentially like a abbreviated form of a contract that some brands might send to you before they send over the full contract. And they're normally used for like really big contract deals. Like I used to write heads of terms for talent when I used to work at an agency. But basically it's like a summary. It's like an executive summary of the main kind of terms and things that they want the creator to agree with, so that you can get all of that out of the way before they turn it into like a big legal contract. So it's not binding in any way, but on the heads of terms it said, oh, by the way, Jade can't work with any brands for 3 months. They didn't say it to me up front, so if I wasn't checking for those things, I could have just signed that without even knowing. So all that to say that despite a lot of back and forth and negotiations to see if we could make the deal work, it just didn't work. We couldn't get to an agreement, so it just wasn't gonna work, and I turned it down. So now that my sad tale has been told, I want to talk about the 3 main reasons why you should consider turning down a brand partnership. Because what tends to happen is when you're in your early stages and you start to get brand deals, you kind of just want to jump on anything that comes your way because you're so excited by the idea. But even if you're not in your early stages and you're further down in your career, maybe you're further along than I am, right? What ends up happening when you start to get deals which are bigger than you normally get is, again, you feel a bit more tempted to bend over backwards and maybe agree to things that you wouldn't normally agree to, or maybe work with brands who you wouldn't normally work with. So I want this video to give you the information you need in order to make a decision as to whether or not you want to take these deals and work with these brands. So the first and potentially the most important reason to turn down a brand deal is when you do not feel like you are aligned with the brand's values. This is a really important one, and it's one that a lot of people forget to check, because nowadays we assume that every brand has the same kind of beliefs and support the same causes that we do, when unfortunately that is not the case. So I always advise people to do a bit of digging behind the brand they're going to work with, right? Even if you're already familiar with their products, do a bit of digging on their website, find their mission statement, find more information about them, search their name on Google, and then click on the news tab, because when you do that, you can see the most recent news articles about that brand, and you might find that there's been some questionable things being done by the brand recently, and actually you don't want to associate yourself with them. The second reason to turn down a brand partnership is when you haven't tried or used their products or services in the past, and when they are not willing to let you to try or use their products and services free of charge before agreeing to a partnership deal. So we all know that there are influencers and creators who will promote anything that comes their way and they don't really care about it. Case in point, there was once a reporter or a journalist who went undercover and had a conversation with Lauren Gooder. She's from Only Ways Essex. I can't remember her last name. Lauren Gooder. So they had a conversation with her and they pretended to be a brand that wanted to sponsor her, and they filmed this interaction. And in the interaction, the brand says, like, does it bother you that you won't be able to try the product before you promote it? And she just sits there and she's like, no, like I've never tried all these other products that I've promoted. Like it's gotten to the point where my friends will message me saying, hey, I really want to try this thing you're promoting. Is it really that good? And she'll like laugh in response to say, obviously I've not tried it. I'll put a link to whatever I can find where that video exists in the description so you can watch it, because it's crazy, right? So yeah, some creators and some influencers just promote anything. That doesn't mean that you have to do the same thing. Sometimes you'll get offers from brands who have a product or a service that you genuinely think sounds really interesting and that you might actually like. Now that's great, but what you want to make sure you're doing is trying the product or the service before you sign a contract to promote it. And most brands will understand when you say to them, hey, I've not actually owned something from you before, I've not actually tried your service, would you mind if I get a trial period or I get an item gifted or whatever it is, so that I can check it out for myself before I promote it to my audience. That way you can know that whatever you're promoting to your audience you genuinely like and you believe in. But also it helps you avoid like scammy brands, because there's a lot of them. Like I get a lot of emails from people where I'm like, I don't even think you're a legit brand or you even have an actual product. Imagine if you promoted something to your audience that didn't exist and actually it's just a scam and they just take your money and run away from it. Like how awful would that be? How do you get that trust back from your audience, right? So yeah, always make sure you have the opportunity to trial or test a product before you promote it. And if you do not have that opportunity, turn down the collaboration. The third reason for turning down a brand partnership is when the monetary value of the brand partnership is not fair. Notice I said monetary value here because sometimes there might be offers that are gifted that are actually really good for you. Some people have really strong views as to whether or not you should work with a brand on a gifted basis. I personally think if the brand is small and you actually really like and value the product and you're also not signing a contract to promote it, then I don't really see a problem with it, but it's really up to you, right? But the point is that whatever you're getting in return for this sponsorship or partnership needs to be of a fair monetary value. So if you're getting something gifted but you normally charge people, but it's a new brand and it's worth £400, to you might be like, do you know what, that is a fair monetary value, right? Or if you're negotiating with a brand, you've told them your fee and they've come back and said, no, we can't do that, we'll give you half, which happens 9 times out of 10, they will massively try to lowball you. Well, then you can decide that that monetary value is not fair and turn it down, right? Obviously negotiate if you can, but if they will not pay you what your fee is, and you know that you are worth that amount of money because you know that you can actually give them the results that they want and they need, then stand firm and decline the partnership. There will be more, I promise you. And that is it. Those are all my tips. I hope you found this video interesting but also useful. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend checking out this video. It's all about how you can double your income as an influencer or a content creator. Thank you so much for watching as always. I will see you in the next video.